I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, April 19th, 2021 to order. In accordance with the executive order, this meeting is being conducted via Zoom. First order of business is pledge allegiance. Charlie, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Item 2, public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Highly unlikely, since I don't think there's anyone other than principals here, board members and town employees. So we'll move on to item 3, and that's to approve minutes. And this would be the
I'll move
minutes. Thank you, Charlie. Is there any comments? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Any comments, questions, changes, etc.? I had none. Let me try your minds. Selectman Haverda.
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner.
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. All right. Item 4, Finance Director Mary Jane. 4-1, monthly finance report.
Good morning. We'll start with
Good morning.
revenues. So through the end of March, we are 96.1% received through our revenue, which is lower than where we were a year from now, owing to our tax collection being low at this point. We did have our final collection, April 1st, for that was eligible to come in and not be late. That brought in about $425,000, which brought the tax collection rate up to 98.4. Still lower than where we were this time last year. We're typically over our budget. I know the tax collector is dealing with delinquencies and some issues just related to people not knowing that they had extra time. Matt may have more information on that, but that's kind of where we are on tax collection. I'll just add that we're really conservative, and we do a good job of budgeting that number. Has some of that leeway, knowing that we normally don't collect 100%. So I'm hoping that the budget itself will be okay by the end of the year. Obviously, we can't guarantee that, but so I'm looking to at least reach 100% instead of the 106, 7, 10% that we normally.
What kind of dollar amount does that 2% represent?
About a couple million.
Yeah, 2% would be 1.8 million, right?
Yeah.
And change.
Yes,
So-
you can, yeah. So you can see here the remaining revenue, if you're looking at the report, is 1.9 million, and we brought in 400,000 on top of that. So that's where we are, about 1.5 million. We do collect through the rest of the year, like I said, so hopefully that will come in a little closer to budget.
Right, so we're assuming that they're just the normal run of issues about not understanding deadlines and that type of thing, and we're not, I just want to make sure we're not faced with a bunch of cases going forward and long-term delinquencies where we end up having to have bigger issues.
Yeah, Charlie, there are a higher number of delinquencies this year than last year. I personally have had conversations with at least 4 residents since April 1st, complaining that they weren't aware that they had to have it in, and if they didn't on April 1st, that interest would accrue. So I think there's some of that, and there may be some challenges here. So we're going to continue to keep track on it. But as Mary Jane says, we do budget conservatively. We don't budget for 100% tax collection.
Are any, if we're faced with, I mean, out of $1.8 million, if we end up with $1 million of folks struggling, are any of those COVID funds going to cover that type of thing for people?
Yes, Charlie, the COVID funds are eligible to cover shortages, revenue shortages. So
I
tax
don't mean
revenue
necessarily from the town side, but for the people side, for the taxpayers, are there going to be?
I have not heard of anything. I think the stimulus checks and those things were designed to help people
that,
with some of that stuff.
Might be
As
something to keep in mind, for our legislators and that type of thing. So, okay.
Yeah, so, the other line item that we're struggling with is interest. Again, another line that we are considering using those funds to recoup some of our lost revenue. But that's the other significant line item in our budget this year. Every other line item seems to either be on track or is already brought in more than budgeted.
Right. And as we look at the use of the American Rescue Plan funds, I'm not sure that, I would like to have a larger discussion about whether we apply some of those to revenue shortfall on taxes, because taxes will eventually be collected at some point.
Yeah.
Whereas the lost revenue from the interest probably will never be recovered. So it may be appropriate to use some fund balance to make up the shortfall on the tax piece, basically on a temporary basis, loaning ourselves the money until such time as the tax liens and the tax actions, tax sales, if hopefully we don't get to any of those things, but basically lending ourselves money out of our own unassigned fund balance or unallocated fund balance.
Yeah,
Mary Jane, do you
I
think
understand that from the town's perspective. I was just thinking about those taxpayers that are truly struggling at this point in time and have issues with the ability to pay, and what opportunities they're going to have going forward. Because I think this is the tip of the iceberg that we're going to see, not only financially, but in education. We haven't seen the consequences of COVID yet, in my mind. So,
right.
Yeah, I just like to make a couple comments there. It's really difficult for any city or town to make any determination as to how to help specific taxpayers pay their taxes. Because, for instance, so I may have taken money out of my credit card last month just to pay my taxes because I don't want to be delinquent on my taxes, where my neighbor may be delinquent. Which one of us is struggling more? The person who hasn't paid my taxes or the person who, so to cover individuals, it'd be a really difficult.
No, and I'm not saying we
management.
should. I just, if there were opportunities for us to, let the taxpayers know that they're available and that type of thing. I'm not saying we should, initiate any particular program, but I think we should remain aware that there are going to be struggles going forward. And I think, $1.8 million, has the potential to be very real for taxpayers. So.
Yeah, and I'll also just comment on the fund balance, that's what our undesignated fund balance is for.
Yeah.
For just these types of emergencies. We talk to our rating agencies. They know that we are able to cover such emergencies because of the value of our fund balance. And that's exactly where we should be considering going budgetarily, just to cover our budget.
Luckily, we're in okay shape. Yep.
Yeah, Charlie, I just want to follow up on your point. We've put together, not me, it's a bunch of folks, a long-term recovery steering committee, and largely with faith-based leaders and social service agencies in the community, Women and Family Life Center, the Shoreline Foundation. And we're currently in discussions with the Shoreline Foundation about bringing on someone to help us evaluate what kind of programs we would want to implement with some of those American Relief Plan dollars. all of that money can be spent in a variety of places. It's not just to cover shortfalls in revenue for municipalities. It's to take it can be used for nonprofits. It can be used for summer enrichment programs, for daycare, day camps, those kind of things. So again, we haven't seen the full guidance from the Department of Treasury yet, but I have asked those faith-based leaders and Women and Family Life Center and Shoreline Foundation to try to identify what kinds of programs, based on the needs that they're seeing in their respective communities, in terms of what we can put together to allocate funds. For instance, the Shoreline Foundation, early on during the pandemic, put a plan together that they wanted to raise $20,000 to $50,000 for relief, cash relief for folks who were struggling as a result of the COVID. They wound up raising about $150,000 and has distributed that throughout the community. So I could easily see utilizing some framework like that, where you have to apply, show need, et cetera. And that was all vetted by the Women and Family Life Center. They were the administrative agency in terms of vetting and determining who qualified for some of those funds. So Charlie, you're absolutely right. There is this is a generational opportunity for us to do something to assist people with a funding source that we will most likely never see again. And it's, as I said, it's not just to cover the municipal shortfall. So there may be an opportunity to do exactly that, Charlie. And then there is an unknown bucket of money still coming that to the state that's going to get distributed out to the respective communities in programs like that, from what I understand. Rental reimbursement, eviction avoidance, those kind of things. So I'm assuming that the state, with their allocation, the ones that wasn't specifically earmarked for each separate municipality, will possibly address some of those monies. There's another bucket of money, or tranche as they're calling it, which is based on a distribution to county governments. Well, as you all know, we don't have county governments here in Connecticut. But the way the feds are looking at this, it will be distributed on a pro rata basis throughout the state of Connecticut. So we will get another share of money. So there may be a couple of buckets of money to do exactly what you're saying, Charles, which is to get money into the pockets, another layer of money into the pockets of people to help them with things like paying their taxes.
Right. Okay.
Long-winded answer to your
work
question.
In progress, but I think we all got to be aware of it.
I agree. Mary Jane, sorry to interrupt.
Nope. I'm ready to move on to expenditures unless there's any other questions on revenues.
Just any other soft points, or where do you see some strengths coming here that we hadn't anticipated? Obviously, the golf course is one.
Well, and Public Works was another. We had a number of storms, brought a lot of material to our stump dump, so we're
Right.
over budget there as well. You can see that the Selectmen, we sold some equipment, so the Selectmen have some other, and the fire department is doing very well this year too, and should easily come up to their budget. So all the other budgets seems to be doing well. Some of the the smaller ones. Interesting that the historic district has more revenue at this point. It may be an indication that there are some issues coming before them, and people are out maybe starting to think about work within the historic district, or whatever reason they're going to them. So things have been coming through. Park and Rec, again, until that building fully opens up, we won't be able to bring in that budget the way it's written. Again, a possible place for some of the recovery money, since that is true lost revenue.
Mary Jane, you may well talk about this under expenditures, but even though we don't typically classify it as a revenue source, but FEMA funds and some of the other grant programs, are you going to cover that under expenses? But there has been some additional revenue coming in to cover things like storm, the FEMA stuff for storm Isaias, and usually credit that against, I think you credit that against the expense, but
Right. Well, I'll just say what we've done for COVID and most of the storms, we've taken those expenses right out of the general fund and created a specific grant fund for all of the FEMA and all of the COVID, all of the state, all of the grants that we're receiving for them. So much of that money has been moved right out of the expenditure, except for line items that the grants are coming through for salaries, such as the health department. So you see the health department on the expenditure side is already 94% spent, and that's because we do have pending grants coming in to offset those those additional expenses. So any true expense that we know we're getting grants for, we've moved out of the expenditure budget. Like I said, except for salaries, we prefer to leave the salaries there so that we have continuity from year to year. So again, we have a number, there's probably 8 or 10 grants ongoing right now for ICAS, the tropical storm, and all COVID related items through the health department, the vaccine clinic, FEMA, overtime. We're managing them on a daily basis. We're managing all of those grants.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the only other line item on the expenditure side I wanted to comment on was the insurance line. Mitch has truly overspent his insurance line. I'm just kidding. There's as always at this time of year, we have spent paid out almost everything for the insurance, and we are waiting for the end of the year to be reimbursed by both the library and the waste transfer station. So that line, although where it appears to be over budget at this time, at year end will be made whole because of those transfers.
Good. Okay. Anything else? Warrants, capital fund stuff? Medical.
Medical, we had a pretty high medical this month, $975,000, which is over our anticipated monthly amount. We're still not, can't say for certain that is COVID related and people going back to doctor's offices, but we did have one of our larger expenditure months. And that, along with revenue, our projected surplus is now under $1 million. Under catastrophic claims, we're now at 33% at 2.5 of total claims and 664,000 of covered amounts. So that number seems to be creeping up as well.
Why do you suppose the admin is so high for March? It's been pretty regular at around 200. And it popped way up in March.
Well, it is, part of it's a percentage. So as, if claims are higher, the admin is higher as well.
Yeah, it seems to be out of proportion. Just looking at the previous months, that's all.
Yeah, actually, February was actually the highest. We did.
Well, that's because of the January. February and January.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So if you go back to like December, which was comparable and pretty close in claims, yeah, the admin is back down to that low 200 number.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look deeper into that.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. You're still projecting nearly $900,000 over $900,000 surplus, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And good news, bad news. Catastrophic claims.
Right.
Looks like we may be challenged in getting to the 70% benchmark on ISL, but the good news is that means we have healthier or less sick, less dramatically sick employees. So that's the good news on that side.
Yeah, and we have really, over the last few years, we've really made out in catastrophic claims. So, we certainly, if we were to put all that data together, we're still ahead of the game.
Right. It was only a matter of time before the insurance actuarial folks caught up with us, right?
Right.
Good. Mitch, quick question for you relative to, and I should know the answer to this, but I don't. COVID-related medical expenses, COVID tests, vaccines. Are we paying for that out of our thing, or is that part of the state federal funding?
I don't know the answer to that either, Matt. I'll look into it. I know it's all covered if you're on the plan, but I will have to look into whether it is covered through federal grants to the insurance companies, or whether we're paying for it through the insurance company. Mary Jane, do you know more than that? Don't know.
No, I don't.
Okay,
Look into it for you. We'll get back to you.
thank you. All right, anything else on finance report from Mary Jane?
I have my resolutions for,
Yep,
other than that,
but that was just on the report.
Yep, okay,
4.2 then, consider and act on a resolution to authorize a supplemental appropriation of $22,891 for the town's 2014-2015 school safety improvement project. Mary Jane?
so as I've been talking over the past year, probably, or even longer, after we closed out those very, very old bonds not long ago, it's my desire to continually close out bonding projects as we can. So I do have some that we're looking at today. This one, this particular project actually went over budget by $22,891. Our bonding projects rarely go over. This happened to be one. It is well within our purview to provide the minimal amount of additional funding that is required to just make this particular line item whole. So I'm looking for a resolution to do that prior to closing out the bond for good.
So, I'll make a motion so we can discuss it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just looking at that resolution and the next resolution together, I'm not sure I understand it. With other resolution, it appears that we have 196,000 left in
We're
school
talking-
safety.
I can easily explain that. So we're talking two different things. The appropriation or the authorization is the first one. So we authorized spending, well, it was less, the $1.6 million was authorized. So that was the budget.
Okay.
So we actually overspent our budget by the 22,000. What
Mhm.
happened, the reason there's money left over in there is because the entire project was bonded, and then there were some grants that came in.
Got it. Okay.
So the two items that have significant money
Right.
are because we received additional revenue.
Understood. The appropriation is just the
So,
spending piece.
right, so
Okay.
here
All
we're
right.
talking the authorization or the budget side of the
Mhm.
equation, and the next one is the actual cash balance or net.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does totally make sense. Thank you. And my other question is just procedurally, if the town has to approve the appropriation, why does the Board of Selectmen have authority to approve a change in the appropriation?
The Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance are able to make appropriations up to 1% of the total town's budget. So that
Okay.
it's in, that's why I said it's in our purview to do the 22. If the amount was significant,
Mhm.
I'll use Mulberry Point Water Project as the example. We authorized a certain amount of money, and then we went out to bid. The bids came in significantly higher. We went back to the town.
Back to the
If the
town.
bids
Okay.
had only been $100,000 higher, the law allows for some discretion on the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. So for 22,000, our bond counsel felt that was well within our rights to do so.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Other than Mary Jane, thanks for that explanation. It clears it up quite easy.
Mhm.
All right, hearing none, we have a motion. Do we have a motion?
Yes, there was a motion and a second.
And a second, good. Let me try your minds. Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. 4.3, consider an act on a resolution to transfer unexpended funds between projects and close out completed projects. Mary Jane, this is part 2, right?
Right, so first I'll comment that our bond counsel produced these resolutions, so just to make that clear, it wasn't me. Bond counsel actually reviewed all of this data and put all of this information together. So we have the 3 projects, the school, classroom, and space renovations from 2011-2012, education, health, and safety improvements also from 2011-2012, and the school safety improvements from 2014-15. Those 3 projects are completed, done, and we will not be spending any more money on them. We did, like I mentioned, bond for most of the project, and then we received some grants to cover that. And I will take my part in any responsibility of that. It's when I first got here, and I was trying to cover our expenditures, and I wasn't aware of the grants that were due in. So, normally we wouldn't over bond, because of that, but it was just in the transition of finance directors that happened. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's not that we did anything wrong or that we would be cited for. It's just, it could happen anyway, that we bond for something and then all of a sudden we find a grant that we weren't aware of and get the money in. So this is absolutely, shouldn't be a problem for any of you. So the 3 projects together have a balance of $461,000, and we have chosen the school facility improvements project of 2017-2018 to move that revenue to. What that means is that revenue will be moved into that line item, and that's $461,000 that we will not bond in that particular. So overall, we're not bonding any more than we're allowed to overall. We're just moving where the bond money is applied to.
Okay. And we have not bonded yet for the 2017-2018.
We bonded some, but we have almost $2 million on that project that I would have been bonding this coming August.
Okay.
So it'll lower that amount.
Okay, great.
Good. All right, thank you for that explanation. And just proving that government occasionally does move at a glacial pace. We're talking about 2011, 2012. And Mary Jane, thank you for your diligence. This has been, I know this has been one of the things that you focused on since you got here, is closing out old bond issues. And this is progress towards that end. So is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So move.
Second.
A second. Sandy, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Let me try your minds. Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. Mary Jane, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I look forward to this same conversation with you this
Hearing
evening.
the whole
at
thing
Board of
tonight.
Finance.
Yep.
Before I move on to item 5, I just want to correct myself. I mentioned earlier about the dispersal of some of those American Relief funds, and the agency that we're working with is not the Shoreline Foundation, is the Guilford Foundation.
I thought so, but I didn't want to.
No, please don't hesitate to correct me.
Okay.
All right. Item 5, Public Works Director, Tom Fillion. 5.1, sickle bar mower request and quote. Tom? Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. I'd like to recommend the purchase of a 5045E four-wheel drive John Deere sickle bar mower. The mower, this tractor is used for roadside mowing. And at this point, we only have one, where we used to have 2. It also has an ability to use a flail mower in the back and an auger for post hole digging. as far as the need for this, I'm looking more for the speed on getting some of our work done. We're right now, we're using an over rail mower with the sickle bar mower. And the over rail mower has to drive a lot slower, a lot more adjusting, everything like that. So time wise, it's made a huge difference as far as what we're getting done. The cost, it would be from Batcher Corp. The cost of the machine is $56,126.61. We only have allotment of $45,000. We figured that would be enough, but with Alamo basically a monopoly now in that business, the price is way up. So the remaining balance would have to come from the equipment bond 21712 57938. And we saved with the 98 truck, we saved over $65,000 in our costs with that truck. So we'd like to use some of that extra $11,000 to help pay for this machine. We also received a 15% discount from Sourcewell, the federal, bid. So that being said, that's how we like to go about Sourcewell. Okay.
Tom, isn't there also an issue with the methodology you're currently using with the sickle bar and the over the rail thing in terms of damage to the machine on a consistent, regular basis? Is that something you've experienced?
Definitely experienced that with the over the rail. I mean, the over the rail mower is just basically for that over the rail reaching out, and it's got a boom that angles, and we're able to cut back a lot of the heavy brush. But most of the stuff that we are doing at this point is high grasses and stuff like that, where we can move a heck of a lot faster with a sickle bar than I can move with this particular machine. And also, in a way, it would protect the over the rail for our needs, what it's really needed for wintertime and stuff like that, where I can cut back a lot of the stuff where I don't use a sickle bar in the wintertime.
Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of what we're doing here is to improve sight lines for the safety of traveling public.
That's right. We have at this point like 45 sight lines that we do every year, a couple times a year. And the growth, especially with the last springs that we had with the weather, there was a lot of growth and stuff like that. So the sickle bar mower, like I said, is more for moving that in so I can gain more speed on it. And we used to have to years ago, and we were cut down to one. So I'm looking at time basis for all the projects and stuff that I got to get done. So this machine would definitely help in that aspect.
And as I see at the end of your introductory letter, the Public Works Commission approved this purchase at its last meeting, right?
Yes, they did. Yep.
Good.
So was this, do I understand correctly, was this piece of equipment included in the capital budget request with the amount of 45,000? Is that the situation? Or was it not included in the request at all?
No, it was included in our capital, the request. Yep, but
It's
we
in
did
there.
put a number at 45,000, which we thought
Got
would
it.
be adequate, but
Okay.
obviously wasn't.
Understood.
And Mary Jane, we have available funds in there. Obviously, we have available funds in their bond. And this is a contemplated and appropriate use, because I think we probably wrote that that bond issue wide enough to include any equipment.
Absolutely. It's an approved use of the balance left in that bond.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Thank you, John. Second. Let me try any further discussion? Let me try your minds. Selectman Haberda.
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner.
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye. Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. Thanks, Tom. Item 2, discuss and take possible action on the purchase of the sickle bar mower. Why do we have it there twice? You're done then, Tom.
Okay. Have a good day, and thank you.
All right. Item 6, Park and Recreation Director Rick Maynard. 6.1 is a request to waive 3-quote requirement for the July 2021 fireworks. Rick?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, it's great. It's great. We're starting to move towards some normalcy. Last week we started our senior lunches, which we hadn't been able to do for a year. On a limited basis, we're not going the full crowd. We're planning on our camps for the summer and beaches. And with that, we'd like to do the fireworks. We've been told that we can go forward with it with the amount of crowd that we get, based on this current state guidelines. The date that we have selected would be July 10th, rain date the 11th. But what I'd like to do is, ever since 2000, since we've been doing the fireworks, we've always gone with Atlas Pyrovision. They have a very good safety record. The fire department's always liked working with them. They're professional. They always bring what they say they're going to bring. And it's just, I mean, you've all been there, it's a great show. So we're asking to waive the requirement to get 3 quotes and to award the contract to Atlas Pyro, I think it's Pyrovision, for $15,000. And again, the request is to waive the requirement for three quotes.
Rick, how many years have we used these folks?
Since 2000, so it'll be our 21st year. We missed one.
Exception of last year, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Rick?
No, I have no problem, and I'll move waiving of the 3 quotes. I did have a question though on the funding. Where aren't there usually donations to cover a good piece of this, or does it come out of programs, or where exactly do these numbers come from?
I think
You
I
think it's typically
remember,
come out of program funds?
yeah, and I think in recent memory, after 2008, in order to try to save money in various ways because of what went on in 2008, the town was going to cut the fireworks, and then some private individuals raised money for it. But I think prior to that, it was program funds, so.
That's correct, Sandy. I think there were 2 years that there was fundraising done by private individuals. But other than that, it's always been sponsored, paid for through town or program money.
I think it's sort of a hopeful thing to have, particularly for this year, and I maybe not ask people to, well, we're paying for it one way or another through program fees and or past taxes, but I would just love to see us just fund it as a town activity.
Yeah, I think I agree with Sandy that, especially this year, we have to get back to some normalcy and everything. I don't think it's the end of the world to pass the hat or something like that, but that's a separate issue. I just wanted to double check where we were with that. I remember that we had done donations one year, but I already made the motion, so do we?
That was second.
And we have,
I want to just give you a little background. One of the alleged eligible expenses of the American Relief Plan money is economic development. So I had charged Sherry with working with Rick to try to do something to focus on an economic development. You turn that 4th of July or the fireworks weekend into some kind of promotion of Guilford business, for an economic development perspective, whether it's promoting existing business, attracting people to town, that kind of thing. So I think if we can package something together clearly, that may well fall under the auspices of the American Relief Plan money for economic development. If not, certainly we can find the funds in that'll be Mary Jane's job.
Yeah. Well, needless to say, as much as I would encourage something like that, I think this is a double-edged sword. We have to tiptoe into, crowds and that type of thing on July 4th. So,
Well, Rick, you want to talk a little bit about how you might handle it at the fairgrounds?
Yeah, so the current regulations are you can have up to 10,000 people for outdoor events. So we get about 5,000 or 6,000. So I think we're okay there anyway, or 50% capacity. And we checked with the Ag Society when they pack in the cars for the fair. I think they said it's about 800 or so cars they get in there, and they do the parking for the fireworks. And their estimate was that was more like 400 because they don't pack them in. they just let people drive in and people just sort of pull in and park somewhere, you know, that it's not real efficient. So I think we're okay as far as the numbers go. We'll fall into the guidelines there. The other thing, you know, where we always set the area up front where people can sit outside of their cars, we have that whole sort of lane, I guess you call it, for people to sit with their chairs. We can make 6-foot squares like we do at the ball fields for the Little League games, and make areas where people be designated to sit so that we can separate them out by 6 feet, you know, from one family to the next. So we could do that too.
Good.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second on the table to request to waive the 3-quote requirement for the July 1, 2021 fireworks and award the contract to Atlas Pyrovision in the amount of $15,000. Try your minds, Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on to item 7. Assessor Jen Bernardo, 7.1. Discuss and take possible action on the award of RFP number 2-2021 reappraisal and reevaluation of all real property. It's that time in the cycle again. Jen, good morning. And would you give us your perspective and your recommendation?
Okay, sure. We put out an RFP for the 2022 revaluation, and I went out with 3 different options based upon the state of Connecticut's recommendations, with an additional option of having photographs. And we ended up receiving 3 different companies bidding on the project. And I have highlighted on your sheet option number 2, and the number in red is what is estimated with the images, which leaves us at a really good number, I feel. And that company is Municipal Valuation Services. They were the low bidder. There were no exceptions. The other 2 companies had exceptions. I recommend them too. They have 3 different principals in the company that are MAI appraisers, which is the highest designation, versed in residential and commercial valuations. And it's definitely a plus for the litigation support. And we did use them previously in 2007. And despite having issues, I've still received good recommendation on their recent work. And to be honest with you, any revaluation company you hire, you're always going to have some issues. So.
Agreed.
Jen,
All right,
can you explain what options 1, 2, and 3 exactly are?
Sure. Option 1, data mailers with full inspections. That's basically sending out a notification to the homeowners, which is a description of their property. And you would have them, you can use it 2 different ways, okay? In option number 1, basically you would have the company going out and going to every single property, measuring it, trying to get inside and listing it. If people didn't respond, you can use the data mailer as their interior information. With COVID, right now, it's really not a good thing, and it's usually always your highest dollared option. Option 2, the data mailers with partial inspections. In that situation, we're only asking for certain inspections. And then option 3 is the data mailer only. And that option leaves an additional amount for some of the companies for an additional charge to go out to a property if if we needed them to do an inspection. So to me, going with option number 2 is a known number. If you're dealing with option number 3, it's an unknown number. You don't know how many inspections are going to be needed.
Okay.
And the state, again, the state of Connecticut, I think, did it because of COVID.
Your department determines the need for inspection?
Correct.
And the option, when we talk about options, it's only the fact that you're getting images or photograph or.
Image
whatever.
was the additional option, correct.
Okay,
Fire department wants photographs for one thing. They want to know entry points to a house. So that the more information we can get in regards to images will really help them out, as well as probably the PD as well.
and when you say this favored bidder has no exceptions, give me an example of what exceptions might be.
We had exceptions in regards to, maybe Peter can pipe in. Let's see what I have.
Peter, you're still muted.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, there were a couple of exceptions I recall. There was, we had appended a template contract that pretty much tracked what we had used last time around. There were some exceptions taken. One of the vendors wanted us to use their form contract. I think two of them had some issues with the liquidated damages clauses that we.
And so these are not exceptions in their evaluations. These are some legalese types things.
Yes.
That's right. It's,
Okay.
they would take an exception with one of the,
All right, so it
not
wouldn't be an
specs.
exception of a evaluation. It was, okay, I understand that.
Yeah,
Okay,
liquidated damages, insurance, things like that.
Okay. All right, so what do we need? A motion here, Matt?
But I do have a couple of questions. Yeah, let's take, Charlie, you're gonna put it in form of a motion?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll-
second?
Yep.
Second.
I do have a couple of questions, and then a comment. I believe, Mary Jane, that we have $425,000 already allocated for this expense.
Correct.
All right, so this seems to have a variable component here. Option two with municipal valuation is 320. Was it 324?
113, roughly.
And that's all in with a finite number of images, obviously, right?
Within, correct.
Okay. In this day and age, it's unusual for costs to go down. Because I think our previous experience was about $400,000 to do something. Did we do it, the last time we did it, did we do it in a similar fashion with option two data mailers and partial inspection, or was it more like an option one, Jen? Do you
No,
recall?
we did option two. Same option.
I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth, but I'm assuming we have more parcels. We have more properties that need to be inspected or mailers to be sent out because there's been some construction in the last 5 years. Is it just a competitive marketplace for these folks at this point to drive the cost down?
That's a good question. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know if it's technology as well has progressed over the years too to help assist them. I'm not really sure. Maybe MJ remembers too what the number was the last go round. I do know that we discussed putting the images in, and so she might have bumped that up in that instance, not knowing what the total cost was going to be.
Okay,
Might simply be that they have experience now with the town.
yeah.
They've been through it once and they're familiar with it, so.
Got it.
Okay.
Can I ask, how many parcels just roughly are there?
Well, you would ask.
Sorry.
Roughly 10,000.
10,000.
10,000. Okay, okay. So it seems like for municipal valuation services, the option 3 is so much less that you could have, if I did it right, that we could have up to 2,400 on-site inspections, and the price of option 3 plus the inspections would still not go higher than option 2. Does that seem like 2,400 inspections for out of 10,000 parcels? Does that seem like a low
Let me
number?
just,
I'm sorry.
no,
Yeah,
it's all right.
I think that might be a 24 out of 10. That's what, 25%.
25%.
A quarter of them.
Yeah, is that a decent sample size as long as you're picking the right ones?
Yeah.
It's actually really hard again to estimate.
Mhm.
For one thing, I have a set number of properties that need to be looked at. And then you have the unknowns as to how many people are going to be returning their data mailers, how many people are going to have
Oh.
issues that you need to go out on and take a look at.
Mhm. So there's no
And
way
then
of
we also
knowing
have
if
the
20
boom, estimated boom of, new construction.
Mhm. Okay. All right. All right. And then my only other thought was Tyler Technologies. Is that Munis?
Yes.
Yeah. So could there possibly be any efficiencies to using the same provider for this too? I mean, I have no idea technologically if it interfaces with anything or if it's.
Not within my department.
Good question, Sue. But
Yeah, I'll just say, Jen doesn't use Munis for her assessment. She has quality data.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
there's really no benefit to her or the system for that reason.
Okay.
great answer. Thank you. All right, here's the comment I had made as he occasionally shakes his head when I share information with him, like, why are you spending your time on that? But I have every once in a while, I pull the real estate section from the Guilford Courier.
Mhm.
And because I like to play with spreadsheets every once in a while, I've put some data together that goes back over the last couple of months, and back to December actually, to see what the impact is on what the impact has been relative to the demand for housing in Guilford and what's happened to prices, particularly what's happened to prices versus appraised value. And again, Jen and I have had some conversations on this over the last couple of years since she's been in the role. And this is not a reflection of inappropriate appraisals, et cetera. It's just perhaps an indication of what may happen with this reval. For instance, in the paper date, last week's paper, there were 5 or 6 properties, 4 properties sold for respectively 23%, 26%, 54%, and 20% more than the appraised price. Go back, I actually I have some data that goes back to December, the December 20th Courier. There were 6 properties that sold. One was 58%, another 34, another 16, another one 87, another one 9, and then another one 15% over the appraised price. So I think we may see, again, Jen, I'm not sure how much recent sales data plays into the evaluation, but revals are always a snapshot in time. All right, we've had revals during boom times and we've had revals during market crash times, and I think we all experienced one of those back in 2009, right? And we saw a decrease in our total grand list. So there could be an opportunity here. And again, I don't want to talk about this too much. I'm not going to predict what it's going to be, but Jen, based on how they do sales data, how they integrate sales data into the analysis, and particularly recent sales data, which is probably over the last year with COVID, what kind of impact do you think that might have?
You'll really start to be looking at sales starting in October of this fall until the following October of 2022. If we have to, we can go back a little bit more, but that's typically the window that we're going to start looking at.
Okay.
So it depends what's going to happen, come fall time and early next year.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for that answer. Exactly what I needed. All right. Is there a motion to award the bid for reappraisal and reevaluation of all real property to Municipal Valuation Services for an amount expected to be, well, $324,113.
I think I already did it, didn't I? Didn't see it? I'll do it again if I didn't.
Do it again. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I can't remember, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, let me try your minds. Selectman Havertz,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Jen. And I know you put a lot of time and effort into evaluating your bids. I think this is the first one you conducted by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that can cause a little bit of angst, but well done.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, let us move on to item 8. Let me get my agenda here. All right. Item 8, which is to consider and take possible action on the fair housing resolution. This is a requirement for, as I understand it, for the Department of Housing for our grants under the Small Cities Program. And I would appreciate a motion to approve the signature, allowing me to sign this.
So
I'll
moved.
make, second. And even if it weren't required, still in favor of it.
Exactly. All right. Okay. Let me try your minds. Selectman Havertz,
All right.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Thank you. Item 9, consider and take possible action to set the annual town meeting for Monday, May 10th, 2021, 8:30 a.m. via Zoom. Is there a motion?
I'll make a
So moved.
motion.
All right, second.
And a second. Any comments or questions? All right. This one will probably be attended in similar fashion. Sue, are you going to try to join me again this time?
Yes, yes.
To make sure we get a quorum.
Oh, do you want us to be there in person? I mean, is that what
No,
you're saying?
it's just, this is just one of those meetings that's so rarely attended by anybody. So,
I got it. Okay.
all right. Let me try your minds. Selectman Havertz,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. All right. Item 10, appointments and resignations. We have none. That's an unusual time. Item 11, request for use of town property, 11.1, request from Guilford Day to use the green for the annual display of purple flags. Is there a motion?
So moved.
How about a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I do have a comment. I love seeing
Sure.
the flags. But if I'm not mistaken, in the past, last year, there was some kind of signage on the flags explaining where people could get the flags, and those locations were businesses.
Yeah.
So it struck me as advertising on the green, and it didn't really seem right to me. I don't know if there's a way to ask them to refrain. I mean, anybody who wants to get one is going to Google, where do I get a purple flag? So
Yeah.
it's just a thought.
Yeah, let me, so that's a good point. Let me run that by the Green Committee. What do you think?
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Good idea.
If they're being paid for and it goes to fundraising because of maybe these businesses are sponsoring and putting sponsorship dollars up for I see your point though.
Yeah.
Let me run it by the Green Committee and get an opinion from them.
That sounds great.
So do we want to approve this pending the determination of advertisement on the flags?
Yes, that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Motion for that, for same,
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Good. All right, let me try your minds. Selectman Haverda,
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner,
Aye.
Selectwoman Ruoff,
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Item 12, committee reports. Any committee reports? No updates from me as it relates to the housing thing, other than the fact, I think Sandy, last time you mentioned, they are going to planning and zoning and inland wetlands
Yeah,
for the subdivision.
I double checked with George. It's still not absolutely set. I don't think we're on the agendas, but it may happen I did get the May dates. If it does happen, it's going to be, the inland wetlands hearing would be the 12th in the evening, May 12th, Wednesday.
Yep.
And then the other one would be the 17th, I believe. And that's the planning and zoning. If it goes along if they're ready to do this is what I'm
Ready,
saying.
they will. And I think the
So-
funding window is this fall, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I did catch on the TV news and I didn't follow it up. There was just a clip of Governor Lamont and the bonding commission signing, approving some bonds, and they said it includes money for affordable housing. So I don't know if it's it's not our project, but just a pot of money for affordable housing projects in the state. So I don't know if that's for past ones or future ones, but it sounded encouraging is what I'm trying to say.
Right, and my understanding is this is new monies. Those are new monies coming in and being made available. As I think many of you probably are aware, this legislative session in Hartford has an extremely heavy focus on affordable housing development. It will have impacts throughout the state, some of that legislation. But locally, I participated once last Thursday, I think it was, on a call on the regional housing, affordable housing plan. Sandy, you're familiar with this from your role in the affordable housing. I can never remember your committee's name.
The Housing for Economic Development Plan Committee.
Can we get something shorter than that?
We just usually say the Housing Committee or the
I know.
Affordable Housing Committee.
But my point is, there's a well-known consultant, a statewide consultant, David Fink, who's done an substantial body of work in affordable housing in Connecticut. He is the consultant that the Council of Government is using to help the Council of Government's 13 members who are in need of assistance in developing the affordable housing plan as designated by the legislature. We have to have a new affordable housing plan prepared for submission by June 1st of 2022. And this is one of those great opportunities to do something on a regional basis, because housing is really a regional issue. It's not just a Guilford issue. It's not just a New Haven issue. It's a regional kind of issue. So David Fink continued to heap praise on Guilford even though this meeting was to discuss our role in the regional plan, he continued to heap praise on us and the reputation we have for the manner in which we proceeded with getting an affordable housing project through the community. And Charles, being a key part of the last administration with Sandy's committee, we get such great press, statewide, even though what concerns me is, we're only at 2.5% of the threshold number for it. But the fact that we have actually taken some proactive steps and the manner in which we engaged the community to get there was heartwarming. And as a result of that, any project that comes up from Guilford that involves Guilford is allegedly going to be looked at very favorably by the Department of Housing, because we have that reputation even within the Department of Housing. So the funding for that project, I'm not saying is a lock. That there's no such thing as a lock in this world, but the bonus points that come from those applications, we have them.
We're not quite counting our chickens, but we're getting there.
Right.
We're getting there.
Okay, correspondence, anything on Public Works? Anything on old business? New business. I have one item. You see the handsome face of former Selectman McConley on there. He is requesting that we go into a relatively short executive session to cover a couple of items. I don't think we are going to anticipate any action coming out of them. But if so, is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of receiving a report on the land acquisition activities?
I just had one question before we do that. I just,
Certainly.
it's the same question that Charles asks and I ask often. Where are we with public meetings such as this? I know you're following the governor's guidance, but do you have any update on that, Matt?
Yeah, I think we could host hybrid meetings. And I was thinking about this earlier this morning. And because I figured Charles would ask the question. So the question is, do we want to start to do that? As I think the executive order allows for hybrid meetings, which means we have to allow a certain number of people into the meeting while continuing to do the Zoom. Now, the fact that we have the capacity to run the Zoom meeting out of the Selectmen's wing suggests that we can come in, those of us here. We don't necessarily need to have all the department heads in that room, where we're going to need to abide by the 6-foot spacing in that room, which means at the table. All right. You know, with or without masks. Okay. Because some of us are more than, I'm 3 weeks out from my second COVID shot. I don't know where everybody else is. And I'm also very sensitive, as I started with the outset with this, because we could have done hybrid meetings before, with people's comfort level with being together in those kind of situations. So I would entertain doing a hybrid for those who want to come in at our first May meeting, who want to come in the Selectmen's wing. We can continue to have, you know, if Mary Jane wants to work from her office, Mitch wants to work from the office, or wants to come to the meeting, based on the number of people we suspect will be there. And the challenging part will be how do we tell the public how many people can come? All right. Because, but not that we have a huge demand at our meetings normally for people to come in person, but if we continue to offer the Zoom in a hybrid meeting, we at least can all sit together in the room. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. And it's really about what's your comfortability level, and then what rules do we put in place? One of my concerns is if people see 5 people sitting around a table without masks on, do we have to put a disclaimer out every time? We've all been vaccinated, and per the CDC guidelines, we're no longer required to wear a mask. Or should we model the appropriate behavior and wear a mask while we're sitting in a meeting with all of us there?
Matt, my experience in hybrid meetings so far is they also require a learning curve. My personal vote would probably be, if not the first meeting in May, maybe the second meeting in May, to get ourselves and the public up to speed, so that it was my understanding that generally June we were going to be as much back to normal as we're going to get for a while. And I got to tell you, having experienced a couple of hybrid meetings, technologically and getting the public, they don't go as smooth always the first couple of times, because you got the problem of people in person interacting at one level, and then you got the Zoom people. So, you know, I think maybe the second meeting in May, if not, I mean, the first wouldn't be the end of the world, but at least by the second one, you ought to have what we call not a practice meeting, but it would be effectively a practice hybrid meeting. And then in June, just start, you know, work out whatever we have to and go forward, hopefully.
That's fine by me. Sue, Sandy?
I think we could start in May with doing it in steps, and we don't have to. I think we should if it was me making this whole decision, I would say the selectmen and then individual department heads, when we need to speak to them, either in their offices or in person, and keep the public completely on Zoom, just so that, as Charles says, we see how it works with just our internal participants, because the public's not excluded. They've been on Zoom for a year, so we just continue that for a little while longer. It's for our safety and their safety, so that, like as Charles says, we get to see how it works just with the elected
From my
participants.
experience, the half Zoom, half live, it's a new learning experience. That's all.
Isn't that what's been going on in classrooms though for a year? Half Zoom, half live? I mean, anyway, I'd do it sooner rather than later, but I will defer to the group.
Hmm.
So how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I would say we should wait as long as possible. You know, why not wait? I think that's the best message to give people is if it's what
Okay.
we've been doing, I think has been working well. You know, I miss seeing everybody in person, but
Right.
you know, but
That's fine. As I said, I wanted everyone to be comfortable before we actually came back to this, because to force somebody to try to do something, because, you know, if there were four of us there and you were doing it remotely, that would be unfair. And we'd also be unfair to put you in a situation where you felt uncomfortable. So,
yeah, I don't.
Charles, go ahead, Sue.
I don't. I would attend and I would not feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
I'd be okay with it if that's what the group wants to do.
At this point, I think, Pete, you can, you've been closer to this than me, but I think the executive order, the extension of the governor's executive powers gets him through basically May 20th, right?
That's right.
At which point those orders, well, we don't know. There may be some that get enacted into legislation between now and then. So if,
Yeah, I
go ahead,
think,
Pete.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you're right. I think to May 20th for what we're currently doing. And then, you know, Matt, you and I had talked a little bit about hybrid. Is it worth doing? You know, it can be complicated before you go directly to regular meetings. I think frankly, I think we'll know more within this coming month.
Right.
So, you know, I'd say let's keep an eye on it and see what happens.
Right. Right. Again, Pete, this is a question I should know the answer to, but I don't. And I think I recall in the executive order that if we are meeting in person, then there has to be access by the public to meet as well, if I'm not mistaken, in that executive order. So we can't say that just the Board of Selectmen is going to meet, and then everybody else has to be Zoom. If I'm not mistaken, Pete, and I don't want to put you on the spot right now, but I think that's my recollection of the
I think,
executive order.
yeah, I think that's towards the hybrid model, but I think that's right. And also, frankly, I think what's coming up with some of the other boards and commissions even is, once this does quiet down, are we going to, is the state going to allow, or will the towns be able to allow some sort of remote participation in the future? But there's a question for another day.
Right.
But for now, I think that general understanding that you just expressed is mine as well.
Okay. Well, yeah, because obviously I would love to approach this in baby steps, right? The first one is just the five of us in that room, nobody else here. We do all the other town employees via Zoom, and we do any public input via Zoom. But if that's precluded, and we have to open it up to the public, I think that might change my thinking a little bit, and might change Sue's thinking as I see her nodding her head. So why don't we be prepared, or try to be prepared to make a decision at our first May meeting as to whether or not we go at the second May meeting, or we hold off until June, when the executive order expires, and we may have more of a roadmap based on the governor's decisions and the legislature. Does that make sense?
That's fine. Yes, that's fine. I just think this is a good discussion to have for the public to know that we're thinking about it. And yes, it's
Right.
fine.
Right. And just so you know, it is my hope that we're going to be able to use this technology in this meeting, particularly with what we invested in the Selectmen's conference room, to make these meetings available in some form or fashion to the public, whether it's
Right.
live streaming or it's Zoom participation. And, you know, and they can, in fact, participate. I see this as this, you know, the silver linings that come out of these situations, right, is an opportunity to potentially engage more of the public. Unfortunately, we haven't seen much of it so far in terms of people participating in Zoom meetings, but we've probably not marketed it to the degree that we might have marketed it to make sure people are aware it's that they now can, it's easier for them to attend. But I would hope that over time, and we are currently looking at a proposal on technology to implement at the community center, which would allow for conducting Zoom meetings, not on laptops, but with professional equipment, both in the meeting room, the Board of Finance meeting room, as well as the large meeting room downstairs, the dining room gymnasium area. So, because I think we have an opportunity here to engage the community in a way we never did before COVID, and which is through the use of technology. So, all right. So that's a long way to say we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Sandy. All right.
Move we go into executive session.
Second.
All right. That motion would include inviting Gary McKelney, Kevin McGee, and Janice Plasiak into that meeting. So thank you all for your participation. And Trace, I'll let you know through the door when we need to come out of executive session.
Matt, can Tracy?
So call the question. Selectman Haverda.
Aye.
Selectwoman Renner.
Aye, but I think Kevin had a comment.
Can
Kevin,
Tracy move me to co-host?
what's that? All right.
Yes, Kevin, I will make you co-host.
Thanks.
All right. Selectwoman Ruoff.
Aye.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye, and Trace, as soon as you do that. Pete, you're certainly welcome to stay if you'd like as well. There may be one topic that you might be interested in.
Yeah, if that's okay.
Selectman Hoy is also an aye. Okay.
I would point out that no one's ever voted to stay in executive session.
All right. We've concluded the executive session. There were no motions made, no actions taken. And unless anyone has anything else for the good of the order, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Everybody vote tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
And that's right, just Janice, I love your optimism that you're going to have that $300,000 in July 1st. So
Yeah, I heard that.
make sure everybody gets out to vote.
Understood.
All right. Call the question as a non-debatable motion by a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.